Hi guys, welcome back to Inside Gooners Extra presented by talkSPORT Bet, and today we are joined by an esteemed panel, two good guests and two good friends of mine, Harry Symeou, talkSPORT broadcaster and commentator, and Arsenal fan and content creator Rory Cook. Boys, how are we? All good?
All good, mate. All
Very
good. Top
well.
of the league. Can't complain, can we?
Exactly. There is only one place to start that 2-0 win over West Ham. And we were talking a bit there off air, boys, that, people, Arsenal fans, will always find a way to complain. But Harry, we'll start with you. I mean, you got to be happy with that result and performance, right?
Yeah, I mean, there were patches in the performance where I thought we could have done more and could have been a little bit better. But ultimately, when you come to the end of a week in which you've got three matches, 3 games in 7 days, you've just got to find a way of getting over the line. And I think one of the most encouraging things about Arsenal in this past week is that they've been able to get through at least two of those 3 games, playing probably at sort of 70% and no more than that. And there's been a bit of rotation, some changes, and that hasn't really impacted our ability to get the results that we need. Obviously, some results elsewhere have gone our way as well, which is always a massive help. But yeah, it's been a really, really good week. The performance on the weekend, as I said, overall, I'd argue it was pretty good. There were some patches in the game where I thought we could have done a little bit more, but ultimately we've done what was required. So you won't catch me complaining. It is a marathon rather than a sprint, and in a marathon you have to pace yourself, don't you? And I think that that's what we've seen Arsenal do. They've had to cope with some injury problems, which is something that isn't going to go away for us by the looks of it. It just feels like it's something we're going to have to battle with throughout the course of the season. Thankfully, we've got the squad now to do that. But yeah, I was pleased. I was happy. I never felt that once we were 2 goals to the good, or even 1-0 up, really, that there was a chance that we weren't going to win the game. And that is a testament to the defensive solidity of this team. So overall, a really good day.
Yeah, I mean, Rory, Harry mentioned it there. It is a marathon, not a sprint. And a lot of Arsenal fans were sort of frustrated with the lineup, seeing the likes of Marino, Zubimendi, and Rice in the same team. We saw a different lineup, albeit we'll mention Odegaard's injury, but he did start Martin Odegaard with Eberechi Eze and Declan Rice. Is that a sign that Arteta is willing to use different combinations to win different games?
Yeah, I think so, and it always makes me laugh when people think that Arteta puts out a lineup that he doesn't think will win a game. People say, "Oh, he needs to start players that are going to win games." He does do that, and yeah, different circumstances allow you to play different players. So yeah, Odegaard and Eze both started. Obviously, Rice holds in the six, and it was good, and we started well, created opportunities. Odegaard goes off injured, and I think that you know. That, in a nutshell, is the difference between this season and last season, is that you can bring on Zubimendi for Odegaard. The actual shape kind of stayed the same, but Rice moves forward where Eze was. Eze goes to the right, and we were creating really sort of similar chances. You think the goal that Rice scores is actually really similar to the chance that Eze missed in terms of where everyone was in the build-up to that goal. So, yeah, he clearly is happy and comfortable playing Eze and Odegaard in midfield in certain games, which is good moving forwards. And we've got plenty to rely on coming off the bench too.
I
Yeah,
just want to say though,
go on, Harry.
sorry, Romario. I was just going to say, I get why people were excited by the Eze and Odegaard thing. I was as well. When I saw the team sheet come out, I thought, wow, people keep talking about the handbrake being on. This was as far from having the handbrake on as you could possibly go from Mikel's point of view. So I really liked that. But I do think with hindsight, actually, he got it wrong from the beginning, because I didn't think we had that balance in midfield. I thought we were asking Declan Rice to go and get the ball off the back four, which I don't think he's as good at doing as maybe Martin Zubimendi or Thomas Partey in the past. I don't think we were getting the ball into our forwards early enough as a result and as a consequence of that. And I'm not happy that Martin Odegaard got injured, obviously, and I'd rather he was fit than he's not. But I do think that Zubimendi coming on was actually the catalyst for Arsenal just upping the level a little bit, going and finding that breakthrough goal, and then just having a little bit more creativity. Because for me, the midfield with Zubimendi in it and allowing Rice to go further forward and then Eze essentially to play an even freer role, I think that was a better balanced midfield than what we started with. We all want the attacking names on the paper. We all want to be excited by them, but I didn't think the balance was quite right from the start. So not happy that Odegaard's injured, but I do think that him coming off and being replaced. And by the way, you have to give Arteta credit because he might have bought Ethan Nwaneri on, who's a good player, but not the player that we needed in that instance and in that circumstance. So I've got to give Arteta praise for getting that right. But initially, I think he got it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say you thought he got it wrong because, like Rory said, Arsenal fans sort of, it's as if they believe Arteta's picking a side to not win the game when they complain at his lineups. But, is that, Rory, a sign that, not bringing Ethan Nwaneri in and bringing Zubimendi on for Odegaard, that Arteta's still trying to find the right balance? Because, look, all of our midfielders are quite different, right? They're not all exactly the same. Eze and Odegaard are considered attacking midfielders, but they're very different. It's the same with Ethan Nwaneri. Is it just a case of trying different things, Rory, until he finds the right balance?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's a case of using or rotating players based on how many minutes they've played. Like, I think Zubimendi would have started the game if it wasn't for the fact that he's played, or up until that point, he basically played every minute in the Premier League. He's not had much rest at all. So I think it was a rotation based on minutes as well, as much as anything. But yeah, I think, Odegaard probably does more of the dropping deep, picking up the ball that, like Harry said, maybe Rice can't do that as well as Zubimendi. I think Odegaard can offer that. Does Nwaneri offer that as much? Perhaps not. Is Nwaneri's off-the-ball game as good as Zubimendi or Odegaard? Probably not. So there was an element, I think, of still keeping control of the game in that decision. But yeah, ultimately, I think we're at a point where I don't know what our best 11 is yet. Arteta probably doesn't know what our best 11 is yet. And in a dream world, we don't have a best 11. We have a best 11 for this game that's different to the best 11 for this game, and we can use different variations of that. Whereas over the past 3 years, really, certainly 22, 23, 23, 24, we could all name our best 11 week in, week out. You knew what we were going to line up with if they were all fit. And that's easier to plan for than a game where you might turn up with Trossard on the left, you might turn up with Eze on the left, you might turn up with Marino in midfield. Like, I think it's difficult to plan for us now, and that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good point, Rory. I think the funny thing is we can all agree that Saka gets into most of our best 11s regardless of the opposition. I mean, 200 appearances, boys, 100 goal contributions in those 200 appearances. Some of the names that have reached that milestone, you're talking the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney, Cesc Fabregas, Erling Haaland's on the list. I mean, Harry, how good is Bukayo Saka and how proud were you to see him reach that milestone?
Yeah, very, very proud because, he's come through the ranks. It's not always been an easy journey as well for Bukayo Saka. He came into the side initially as a left back, didn't he? Played some games there, got utilised in slightly more advanced positions and then sort of settled and found his home on the right wing. I think he's had a lot of sort of challenges to deal with off the pitch, particularly after what happened with England at the Euros. And, that was wild to me because he was probably the least culpable person for England's exit, at that point and defeat on the day. I think for Bukayo Saka, it's great to see because you've just watched him overcome basically every hurdle that's been in front of him and do it with flying colours. And I do think at times, he's not always been at his brilliant best. And I think sometimes that's because his fitness has not always been there, but he's constantly fought through those situations. And we know that he's become, as he's developed as a player, a super efficient player. And when you've got that type of person within your ranks, even if he is 70, 75%, there is always going to be that temptation to have him on the pitch because of the moments that he's capable of producing. I have to say, on the day, I wanted Victor Gyökeres to take the penalty, but for Saka, it was a milestone. He wanted to mark that milestone with a goal. He wanted to join Thierry Henry as the only Arsenal player in Premier League history to score on his 200th appearance. So I can understand why he pulled rank in that case and took it on. But what a servant he's been, what a player he's been. And here's to the next 200 as well.
I mean, Rory, obviously Harry's mentioned it there. Saka wearing the captain's armband when he sort of told Victor Gyökeres, this is my penalty. Like, I don't care if you're itching for a goal. Are you happy with that, Rory? Some fans didn't like it, some did. Are you encouraged to see Saka take a lead on the pitch?
Yeah, I don't mind. I think Gyökeres could have done with a goal. He's also the sort of striker that probably doesn't want a pity penalty anyway for himself. But yeah, I think with Saka, in the past, he was definitely accused of kind of being sometimes too mild-mannered, so a bit too nice. And I think just gaining that edge to him of like, no, hang on a minute, this is my club. I am Arsenal Football Club, and I'm going to take the penalty. Maybe the fact that it was for that 100th goal contribution in 200 games that he wanted to hit that milestone as well. But hey, as long as he puts it in the back of the net, then I've got no problems.
I mean, Harry, me and you on your channel spoke about Victor Gyökeres before he signed, and I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Victor Gyökeres. Before the season ended, I wanted him at the club. I mean, I'll be honest, that was the first game this season I've truly questioned him and what he's doing in terms of going forward. I think for the team he done a lot. He occupies the centre backs. He's a nuisance for the defence. But in terms of his game, bringing goals, it was the first time I sort of thought, how do we get him scoring? Well, Harry, I'll ask you, how do we unlock Victor Gyökeres to get him hitting the numbers he did last season?
I think we got to keep doing what we're doing, to be honest. I don't think there's anything wrong with the approach. I think that against Newcastle, he was very, very good in terms of putting himself about, and he worked incredibly hard. I thought he was very good against Olympiacos as well, but Olympiacos posed a very different challenge to what West Ham did. Olympiacos were happy to step out and there was space in behind, because in the Champions League, right, when you play the best team from Greece or the best team from France or the best team from Germany, those clubs, they find it very hard to turn up somewhere and sit in a low block because it's not them. It's not what they do from week to week. So there's obviously going to be a bit more space against a side that are that bit more adventurous. And I thought some of the link-up play between him and Odegaard on Wednesday night against Olympiacos was brilliant. And I really felt like with Newcastle and with Olympiacos, he'd kind of turned a little bit of a corner in terms of just understanding a little bit more about what was required. His teammates were understanding him a little bit better. Against West Ham, you could argue there was a little bit of a step backwards. But I think when you play against a low block, it's not uncommon for the centre forward to get lost in that at times. It's not uncommon for the centre forward to be isolated. And I think what you have to do is play around the opposition to get into those wide areas where you can try and pick him out. But you do that and there's 4 or 5 defenders in the box waiting to clear it. So I think what he did was very important at the weekend, but it probably went under the radar a little bit. You mentioned it there, Romario, occupying centre-halves. By occupying centre-halves, you create a slightly wider gap between the centre-half and the full-back. And think about how Arsenal got their goals. Eze played in the half space down the right. The centre-back gets there quicker to close that gap and gets closer to his full-back if he doesn't have to worry about leaving Gyökeres. And Havertz wouldn't be in that position. Jesus wouldn't be in that position. And then the second goal that comes from the penalty, again, there's that slightly wider gap as a result of Gyökeres' positioning. The ball goes in behind. It's Timber that time that gambles and goes forward, and he wins the penalty. And again, it's in the half spaces. Those half spaces are only as available as they were at the weekend to us when you've got a centre forward doing what he needs to do. So his off the ball contributions will be important. It's important that we highlight them, because otherwise these narratives form and develop of Gyökeres is doing nothing. Well, no, actually he's doing a lot. It's not great on the eye and it's not necessarily what you want to see from a centre forward, but it is effective and he is facilitating others.
Yeah, Rory, what did you make of Gyökeres' performance?
Yeah, I echo pretty much everything Harry's just said in terms of, because he occupies both centre-backs. I feel like Havertz, a lot of people are saying, well, Havertz does all of that stuff off the ball, all of the running and that, and he does. But I've often watched teams leave one centre-back on Havertz and be fairly comfortable with that. Gyökeres is occupying both centre-backs, and it makes a big difference. Like, for the penalty, Jurrien Timber is in that gap between Diouf and the centre-back, and Diouf doesn't know whether to go out to Saka or come into Timber because there's no centre-back there to help him. So I do think that makes a big difference. For me, the one area that I feel like I was expecting something that I'm not quite getting yet is that striker's instinct and speed to get on the end of things. And so when Declan Rice played that ball across, it was the ball over from Trossard, Rice pulls it across. There's a moment of hesitation as Gyökeres is making that run, and it is the difference between him being on the end of it and not. And I think people talk about adapting to the league and adapting to the country, whatever. I think people underestimate adapting to Mikel Arteta and what he demands from a striker and what that probably takes out of Victor Gyökeres, both physically and mentally, compared to what he was doing at Sporting. And so when you're, pushing through that and you're drained from that, you don't have the instinct maybe to sort of make those runs that you would previously. That's the only sort of criticism I've got. And I wasn't expecting, and I don't think anyone was expecting, that he would have to put in the shifts that he's putting in. I think in a dream world, Havertz would have been here picking up some of that slack as well. So yeah, I've got a lot of respect for the way that Gyökeres has approached it so far, and I do think the goals will come.
Yeah, well, the goals will come. Hopefully they do. Regardless, we did get that 2-0 win, which saw us go top the league for an hour or two, but we stayed there after Liverpool lost last minute to Esteval's winner at Stamford Bridge. I know you boys were delighted to see that late winner, and we never want Chelsea to win, but when we benefit, it's always good. Harry, on Liverpool, that's 3 defeats in a row in all competitions, 2 in the Prem. Is there cause for concern for their fans? Are you starting to smell blood? Was Jamie Carragher right about them at the start of the season? Or is it a case of just being calm and after the international break, they'll be backfiring?
Well, I think watching them in the early weeks of the season and watching them pick up maximum points, there was always a part of me that felt like they were getting probably more than their performances were deserving of. But at the same time, you can package that up as being a real positive rather than a negative. So I've got to say, I've been surprised by the way that they've sort of lost, first at Palace, then at Galatasaray, and then obviously away at Chelsea. But they're all difficult fixtures. Going to Turkey is not easy. Going to Palace, who were the only unbeaten side going into this weekend, that's not easy. Taking on Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, it's not easy. So I don't look at those results and those performances and think, well, that's the end of Liverpool. Oh, I will not be writing them off anytime soon. They will be there or thereabouts, as will Manchester City, in my opinion. If we're going to win this league, we've got to go and win it. Nobody's going to hand it to us. Nobody's going to gift it to us. We've got to be great ourselves. We've got to pick up points. We've got to take advantage of weekends like the ones we just have, where we were obviously playing a home fixture against a side that have struggled versus Liverpool, who were going away to Chelsea. And then, the weekend before where they lost at Palace, we were under real pressure, weren't we, to go and get something at Newcastle, which I would argue was probably a harder fixture on paper, yet we got through that. So, yeah, I think that I'm not writing them off, Romario. I'm certainly happy with the way things have gone over the last couple of Premier League weekends, but there's a long way to go. And we've learned the hard way over the last few years. You cannot write people off. You cannot take things for granted. Let's just take it week by week. But it's been a pretty good couple of weeks.
Rory, you in a sort of similar mindset? It's too soon to be taking foregone conclusions from that run of results.
Yeah, I think so. Look, I always say that when teams are playing badly but picking up good results, far more often than not, that results in the team continuing to play badly and then not getting those results more than, because people always say, but when they start playing well, that doesn't happen as often. So I'm not massively surprised that Liverpool have dropped points. But yeah, I think now we've got our noses in front. We've just got to lead from the front for as long as we possibly can. The fixtures we've got coming up are nicer on paper than the ones that Liverpool and City have got. And I do just think, keep pushing ahead. We've not really led the title race properly since 22-23, and we know, looking back, we didn't have the depth of the squad or really even the ability to carry that through, but we do now. And so it's just a case of not being too emotional, not being too dramatic after every win, just professionally seeing out games like we did against West Ham and see where we end up in a few months.
I mean, we do go into the international break now. Off the back of that, we go to Fulham, I believe. Boys, what are you expecting when we come back from the international break? How important is that? It's been a tough ground for us in previous seasons. Harry, how important is it we get 3 points there?
Yeah, it's huge because we've got a run of fixtures now that, at least on paper, looks very winnable. And obviously, having made up ground and having got ourselves into a really strong position with a really tough fixture list to start, we don't want to relent on that. We don't want to give that up. So, yeah, I think it's really, really important. I'm always very wary of the first game back after an international break. You've got players that have travelled to all different parts of the world. You don't know what the fitness situation is going to be like. You've got issues with, players going and playing under different coaches and sort of spending a week sort of working on different habits, and then they've got to revert back to the way they do things at club level. So I'm always wary. But look, we've had a great start to the season. Defensively, we've been really, really sound. We're starting to look better and more effective in the final third as well. So there's reason for optimism, but every game matters, and I try not to look too far ahead at any one given point.
Yeah, Rory, after that international break, we faced the likes of Palace, Sunderland, a bit more of a favourable run in the league than what we started with. Are you confident off the back of the international break we can pull a string of wins together and continue our form?
Yeah, I am. I think the performances against West Ham that are just professional getting the job done. That's what we need to see more of. And the one for me away at Newcastle, in terms of when you look at going away to Fulham, I think the amount of chances we created at Newcastle relative to years gone by is a really good signal in terms of being able to get through those sort of mid blocks. Fulham have, and Marco Silva, credit to him, have played really well against us in the past and really stifled us. But I feel like we've now got the tools to go there and win that game. And the proof will be in the pudding as to whether we do it. Obviously, Palace no longer got that unbeaten run to hold on to. They play in Europe the Thursday before we play them, so that's a nice little advantage. And all things considered, going into the next international break after this one, it should probably be 4 wins from 4 in the Premier League if we're serious. Fingers crossed.
All right. And before we go, boys, forgive me for doing this. But, okay, 7 games played. We're top of the league. Talking today in October, 6th of October. Can you boys see Arsenal finally with their hands on that Premier League trophy come May? Are you very confident or still a bit wary of Liverpool and City?
I'm wary. I'm always going to be wary. Until it's done, I'll be wary. That's just me in my nature. And I think that's what we have to be like as Arsenal fans, because we've had our hearts broken on too many occasions. But look, I can see it happening, and that's the encouraging thing. Like, I can see a world in which we're able to pick up sufficient points, where we're able to maintain a sort of really high performance level. You know, obviously, we want to win other competitions as well. We're in other competitions as well. And I think we've got the squad now to not have to prioritize as much as we have done in previous years, which gives me encouragement that come the end of the season, Arsenal will end up with some silverware. What that silverware will be, I don't know. Premier League or Champions League would be amazing, or both would be, me essentially dying and going to heaven, and I won't need to watch football ever again. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, I can see it, because I think we're finally equipped to do it. And I don't think that's ever been the case in those previous seasons.
Yeah, Rory, don't go doing what Harry suggested, but come on. Are you still wary as well, or are you feeling very confident? Because I'm confident, mate. I'll be honest. I'm very confident.
Yeah, look, I think we're in the best place we've been. I think there's been no point in time where we've been better positioned to do it than this. I think we've addressed pretty much every problem that stopped us winning it in the past 3 years. And so I'm confident. However, I do... let's get through this international break with no injuries. Let's just focus on the small things, and we'll see where we're at.
The PTSD of Arsenal fans coming through there, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today, boys. Harry and Rory there. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you know whenever we drop a video, and we'll see you next time.